Hello, and welcome to Stories TH. In today's video, we're diving into a shocking story that involves love, betrayal, and a twist that no one saw coming. Stay tuned as we take you through the life of William Lancaster, a millionaire who wants to make his ex-fiancée regret everything. If you're curious to see how this bold move unfolds, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Stories TH for more incredible stories. Let's get started. Introduction of the main character and background. Isabella Devereux was a woman whose external beauty and intelligence masked the deep pain she carried inside. From a young age, Isabella had been taught to value appearance and success above all else, and she had excelled in both. Her poised demeanor, striking features, and sharp intellect made her a fixture in high society. Yet, beneath her confident facade was a woman who had suffered tremendous loss and heartbreak. The story of her life, while seemingly perfect on the surface, was actually one of quiet sorrow and emotional turmoil. Born into an esteemed family, Isabella had once been part of a world of luxury, privilege, and opportunity. Her family's name had carried weight in social circles, and their wealth had afforded them access to the finest schools, exclusive events, and luxurious homes. Isabella had been raised with all the advantages that money could provide. She had everything one could ever dream of: designer clothes, private tutors, and connections with influential people. Her life was a dream come true for many, but it was also a life built on a fragile foundation, a foundation that would soon crumble beneath her feet. The Devereux family's downfall began when her father, a once successful businessman, made a series of catastrophic financial decisions that ultimately led to their bankruptcy. The family, once at the pinnacle of success, now faced public humiliation and personal loss. Isabella, who had been sheltered from the harsh realities of life by her parents, found herself thrust into a world of uncertainty and shame. The shock of the bankruptcy shattered her sense of identity and security, leaving her to question everything she had known. Despite the immense loss, Isabella tried to maintain her composure. She had always been strong-willed, but as the weight of her family's failure settled in, it became harder for her to keep up the pretense of perfection. Her once bright future was now clouded by financial instability and social rejection. The grand social events she had once attended no longer called to her, as her name was now associated with disgrace. Friends who had once adored her now looked at her with suspicion, and the world she had grown up in seemed to fade into the background. Even though she had lost so much, Isabella still held on to the strength that had always defined her. She refused to be completely broken by the circumstances that had befallen her. She told herself that she would rebuild, that she would prove to herself and to others that she was more than the sum of her family's mistakes. But deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness. She had lost her home, her social standing, and most importantly, her sense of self. The woman who had once felt invincible now struggled with feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt. Isabella found herself in a large, opulent apartment in New York City, a stark contrast to the emptiness she felt inside. While the apartment was filled with beautiful furniture and luxurious amenities, the space seemed hollow. It was a physical manifestation of her internal state, a place where wealth and beauty surrounded her, but emotional fulfillment was nowhere to be found. The loneliness that had crept into her life after her family's downfall was now a constant companion. She no longer had the friends she once relied on, and her parents, too, were caught up in their own struggles. Isabella's social circle had evaporated, leaving her to navigate her new reality alone. Despite her wealth and the beauty of the city around her, Isabella felt disconnected from the world. The loneliness she felt was all-encompassing, and no amount of material possessions could fill the void in her heart. Her former life, with its glamorous parties and endless opportunities, seemed like a distant memory. She longed for companionship, for a genuine connection with someone who could see beyond her outward appearance and understand the pain she was carrying inside. Isabella spent her days drifting through her apartment, trying to distract herself from the overwhelming sadness. She would often walk the streets of New York, lost in thought, feeling like a stranger in a city she once felt so connected to. The city was full of life and energy, yet she felt as if she were invisible, unnoticed by the people around her. The same streets she had once walked with confidence now seemed foreign and unwelcoming. Despite the millions of people around her, Isabella felt utterly alone. Her loneliness was further exacerbated by the fact that she couldn't talk to anyone about her feelings. Her family, once her support system, was now struggling to deal with the fallout from their financial collapse. Her father had retreated into his own guilt, while her mother seemed to have lost the strength she once had. Isabella had no one to turn to, and as time went on, the isolation she felt only deepened. But Isabella was determined not to let her situation define her. She refused to be another casualty of her family's failure. She had always been a fighter, and she was determined to rebuild her life, no matter how difficult it might be. But as she began to pick up the pieces of her broken world, she found herself asking the same question over and over again. Who was she now? Without her family's name, without her social standing, who was Isabella Devereux? This internal struggle would be the driving force behind her journey of self-discovery. She would need to reconcile the woman she once was with the woman she was becoming. The road ahead would be filled with challenges and obstacles, but Isabella was ready to face them head-on. And in doing so, she would find a strength she never knew she had, a strength that would carry her through the darkest of times and into a new chapter of her life. The life setting in New York. New York City, a world governed by power, money, and high society. New York City is often depicted as the epicenter of dreams, ambition, and wealth. The bustling streets, the towering skyscrapers, and the never-ending activity of the city evoke a sense of limitless possibility. However, behind its glamorous exterior lies a world dominated by power, money, and connections where success is measured by the size of one's bank account and the prominence of their social circles. For Isabella, New York was both a symbol of opportunity and a stark reminder of everything she had lost. As she navigated the city's bustling streets, Isabella was constantly reminded that the powerful and wealthy ruled this world. The high society of New York operated on a different set of rules, one that she no longer felt a part of. Her former life, filled with extravagant parties, designer clothes, and exclusive events, was now a distant memory. She had once been a part of this elite world, where her family's name opened doors and her presence was always noted. But now, the doors to high society were closed to her, and every step she took through the city felt like a step further away from the life she had once known. In the world of New York's elite, relationships were often transactional, what someone could do for you, or what you could do for them. Isabella quickly learned that the connections she had once relied on were now meaningless. Her fall from grace had shattered the illusions she once held about the people around her. The city, with all its opulence and allure, felt cold and unwelcoming. It was a place where only those with the right power and wealth were allowed to thrive, while everyone else was left to struggle in the shadows, living in a luxury apartment without safety or happiness. Despite the lavishness of her surroundings, Isabella's luxury apartment felt like a gilded cage. Located in one of the most prestigious areas of the city, her apartment was filled with designer furniture, modern art, and breathtaking views of the skyline. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect place to rebuild her life. Everything she could possibly need was at her fingertips. Yet, despite the beauty of her home, Isabella couldn't escape the emptiness that lingered inside her. Each day, as she walked through the spacious rooms of her apartment, she felt more isolated than ever. The luxury of her surroundings was a constant reminder of how far she had fallen. It was a stark contrast to the days when her family's wealth had meant stability and security. Now, the vast emptiness of her apartment mirrored the emptiness in her heart. The walls, once filled with laughter and the sounds of family gatherings, were now silent, and Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that she was living in a place that was not truly hers. Her isolation was compounded by the fact that she couldn't share her struggles with anyone. Her social circle had evaporated, and the people who once admired her from afar now viewed her with pity. In this high-powered city, where everyone seemed to have their own agenda, Isabella felt more alone than ever. No amount of material wealth could fill the void left by the collapse of her family. Her friends had abandoned her, and the city's high society, so full of ambition and greed, only reminded her of everything she had lost. Despite the physical beauty of her apartment and the prestige of her address, Isabella felt a profound sense of disconnection. New York's social divide and the self-serving nature of its inhabitants. New York City's social divide was glaringly evident to Isabella. The city was a microcosm of the world's wealth gap, where the elite lived in a bubble, insulated from the struggles of those less fortunate. The wealthy lived in their luxurious penthouses and private estates, surrounded by people who only sought to serve their interests. The divide between the haves and have-nots was impossible to ignore, and for Isabella, it was a daily reminder of how quickly fortunes could change. She often found herself walking through the streets of Manhattan, observing the busy, self-absorbed faces of the people around her. The wealthy rushed to their meetings, heading to their private events, while the rest of the city struggled to get by. Isabella, once a part of the privileged few, now felt like an outsider looking in. The city had a way of making people forget their pasts, as if success and wealth were the only things that truly mattered. In the world of New York, relationships were transactional, and loyalty was often just another word for personal gain. The social divide in New York made Isabella's isolation even more pronounced. The people she once counted as friends had moved on with their lives, leaving her behind to deal with the fallout of her family's bankruptcy. The city's obsession with money and status made it difficult for Isabella to find genuine connections. Everyone she met seemed to have an agenda, and it was hard for her to tell if anyone truly cared for her as a person or if they simply saw her as a means to an end. Isabella struggled to rebuild her life while haunted by the past. Isabella's attempt to rebuild her life was a constant battle. She had lost everything: her family, her wealth, her reputation, and now she had to start from scratch. The road ahead seemed daunting, but Isabella was determined to forge a new path for herself. She knew that to regain her sense of identity and self-worth, she had to leave the past behind and find a way to move forward. Yet, despite her best efforts, Isabella found herself haunted by the memories of what had been. The pain of losing her family, the betrayal of those she had once trusted, and the social rejection she faced lingered in her mind, preventing her from truly moving on. No matter how hard she tried to focus on the future, the shadows of her past always loomed over her. The memories of her family's rise to power and their subsequent fall from grace were too ingrained in her to let go. Isabella's attempt to find peace and stability was further complicated by the pressures of New York's high society. In a city where appearances were everything, Isabella struggled to reconcile her inner turmoil with the image of success she was expected to project. She had once been a symbol of grace and wealth, but now she felt like a failure, constantly battling feelings of shame and regret. Despite the new opportunities that came her way, Isabella couldn't escape the feeling that she was trapped in the past. Her journey of self-discovery was fraught with obstacles, and she often found herself questioning whether she could ever truly rebuild her life. But in the heart of New York, where ambition and drive fueled the city's pulse, Isabella found herself determined to push forward no matter how difficult the path ahead might be. She knew that only by confronting her past could she find the strength to build a future she could be proud of. Painful past. Isabella grew up in a prestigious family, but her father made a critical financial mistake that led to the family's bankruptcy. Isabella Devereux's life had once been the epitome of privilege. Born into one of New York's most prestigious families, she had been accustomed to a world filled with luxury, social gatherings, and endless possibilities. Her father, a highly respected businessman, had built an empire that many envied. Isabella grew up with every material possession she could ever want: the finest clothes, the best education, and access to a network of influential people. She was raised in a grand mansion where wealth and status were more than just symbols. They were part of her identity. The Devereux name was synonymous with respect and admiration, and Isabella took great pride in it. But everything changed when her father made one disastrous financial decision. In an attempt to expand his empire, He invested heavily in risky ventures that ultimately led to the family's financial ruin. His miscalculations, combined with a series of bad investments and an unforeseen economic downturn, caused the Devereux fortune to collapse overnight. The family's wealth, once seemingly endless, was wiped out, and with it, Isabella's security and status in high society. Her father's failure shattered not only his business empire, but also the life Isabella had known. The bankruptcy tarnished their name, and what had once been a symbol of success became a mark of disgrace. In the blink of an eye, Isabella went from being the daughter of a wealthy tycoon to a person who was scorned by society. The lavish events and social privileges she once enjoyed were replaced by the harsh realities of financial struggle. The walls of their grand mansion were soon silent, and the once bustling household turned empty and cold. The sense of stability and security that Isabella had taken for granted disappeared in a heartbeat, leaving her to face the uncomfortable truth of her family's fall from grace. After the family's collapse, Isabella faced social stigma and loneliness as people turned their backs on her. In the aftermath of the financial disaster, Isabella found herself isolated from the very people who had once adored her. The high society world that had once embraced her now rejected her completely. The Devereux name, once a ticket to acceptance, now became a symbol of failure, and with it came the stigma of being the daughter of a disgraced family. Former friends distanced themselves, no longer interested in maintaining relationships with someone whose family was now seen as toxic. The parties and social events she used to attend were no longer open to her, and even the most established families in New York began to turn away. Isabella was left to navigate a world where her status no longer mattered. The social scene she had once been a part of felt alien to her now, and the coldness of people's reactions was almost unbearable. She found herself living in the shadow of her family's downfall, constantly judged and scrutinized by those around her. Her isolation was palpable, as the very people she had once considered friends seemed to disappear from her life, unable to endure the fallout from her family's disgrace. Despite her attempts to maintain a facade of strength, the loneliness took a heavy toll on Isabella. The world that had once been filled with opportunities and relationships had turned into a place of cold indifference. Her only companions were her memories of a time when she was admired and respected, but those memories only served to deepen her sense of loss. As people turned their backs on her, Isabella was forced to confront the painful reality that her identity had been so intertwined with her family's success that without it, she was nothing in their eyes. Isabella's career and job were also severely impacted by her family's financial scandal. In addition to losing her social standing, Isabella also faced the harsh consequences of her family's financial downfall in her career. As the daughter of a well-known businessman, she had once been on a promising career trajectory, working in prestigious companies and building a professional reputation. The social capital she had once enjoyed gave her access to influential figures, and her career had flourished within the circles of power and wealth. However, the scandal surrounding her family's bankruptcy had a direct and devastating effect on her professional life. When the Devereux scandal made headlines, Isabella found herself suddenly blacklisted by potential employers and professional connections. No one wanted to be associated with her or her family, and job offers quickly dried up. Her carefully built career was torn down along with her family's empire. The doors that had once opened to her with ease now slammed shut, and she was left to face the harsh truth that her family's reputation had irreparably damaged her future prospects. Isabella's once promising career quickly turned into a struggle for survival. She was forced to take whatever work she could find, often in low-paying jobs that barely allowed her to make ends meet. The opportunities she had once taken for granted now seemed out of reach. Each rejection she faced only reminded her of the extent to which her life had been upended. The impact on her professional life was perhaps one of the most painful consequences of the collapse, as it not only affected her financially, but also eroded her sense of self-worth. She had built her identity around being successful and admired in her field, but now she was faced with the harsh reality that her family's scandal had taken away the very foundation of her career. Living in the shadow of loss and fearful of the future, Isabella struggled to escape the darkness of her past. As the months passed, Isabella found herself living in the shadow of loss and uncertainty. The fear of the future weighed heavily on her, and she often found herself wondering if she would ever be able to escape the darkness of her past. The pain of losing her family, her career, and her reputation was a constant presence in her life. Though she had moments where she tried to focus on rebuilding, the weight of her past continued to haunt her every decision. Isabella's fear was not just of the present, but of what might come in the future. Would she ever be able to rebuild her life and regain the sense of security and happiness she had once known? The road ahead seemed impossible to navigate, and the scars of her family's downfall seemed to affect every aspect of her life. Every step she took toward rebuilding was met with an overwhelming sense of uncertainty. She often felt paralyzed by her own emotions, unable to move forward because of the fear that the past would always catch up with her. Isabella's emotional turmoil was compounded by her fear of facing the world on her own. The lack of support from her former friends and family only deepened her sense of abandonment. The loneliness she had experienced in the wake of her family's fall was only amplified by the fear that she would never truly escape the shadow of her past. Despite her attempts to forge a new path, the weight of what had happened to her and her family felt like a burden that would never be lifted. Isabella longed for a sense of peace, but it seemed like an elusive dream. Isabella's loneliness and fear. Despite appearing strong and confident, Isabella always feels lonely inside. On the surface, Isabella Devereux might seem like the epitome of strength and confidence. To the outside world, she is an accomplished woman, someone who walks through life with grace and poise. Her beauty is undeniable, and her intelligence shines through in every conversation she holds. However, deep within her, there is a gnawing emptiness, a profound sense of loneliness that she cannot shake off. Isabella's life is a contradiction while she appears to have it all. The loneliness she feels is a constant companion. She fills her days with work, social events, and interactions, but these things never seem to fill the void within her. There are moments when she stands in a room full of people, yet feels completely isolated. The bustling city of New York, with its endless activity and social interactions, seems to amplify her sense of loneliness rather than alleviate it. She has built walls around herself, afraid to let anyone close enough to truly see her vulnerabilities. Even when she's surrounded by people, she remains disconnected, unable to find a genuine connection. Isabella has never fully allowed herself to open up to others. The pain of her past and the loss of her family have made it difficult for her to trust anyone completely. She has been forced to keep up appearances, to act as if everything is fine, while inside, she feels like she is drowning in her own solitude. The loneliness is a heavy burden that weighs on her heart, and no matter how much success she has, it is never enough to fill the empty space inside her. The feeling of being deceived by those around her makes Isabella doubt all relationships in her life. Isabella's deep sense of loneliness is compounded by a growing sense of distrust in the people around her. The painful events of her past have made her wary of others' intentions. She feels as though everyone who enters her life has some ulterior motive, and this realization eats away at her. She questions the sincerity of the relationships she has, unable to truly believe that anyone cares for her without an agenda. Her father's financial scandal and the subsequent fall from grace led to many people abandoning her. Friends who once called her a confidant quickly turned their backs when her family's reputation became tarnished. She felt betrayed by those who had once been close to her, and this sense of betrayal extended to every relationship she encountered afterward. Isabella began to see the world through a cynical lens. Every interaction felt shallow, and she started to wonder if anyone could truly care for her without expecting something in return. As time went on, Isabella found herself pushing people away, afraid of being hurt again. She kept her circle small and distant, never allowing herself to get too close to anyone. She had been burned before, and the scars from those experiences made it difficult for her to trust again. In her eyes, the world was full of people who only sought to use others for their own benefit, And no matter how much she wished to believe otherwise, she couldn't shake that belief. The fear of being deceived by others kept her isolated, and the loneliness she felt deepened with each passing day. She feels like no one really cares about her, and those who get close only do so for their own personal gain. The more Isabella tried to move forward with her life, the more she began to feel that no one truly cared about her. She felt invisible, as though she was nothing more than a pawn in a game that everyone else was playing. Her previous relationships had left her feeling used and discarded, and now she struggled to believe that anyone could genuinely love or care for her. She had everything she could ever want: material wealth, success, and status, but these things felt hollow when she couldn't find a sense of belonging or authentic affection. People around her seemed to only want her for what she could provide or for the benefits they could gain from knowing her. Isabella had become hyper-aware of people's motivations, analyzing every conversation, every gesture, and every interaction for signs of hidden agendas. It was as if she were trapped in a world where no one was truly her friend or ally. Even her romantic relationships had been marred by her inability to trust, leaving her feeling as though love was a mere illusion. She wanted to believe that someone could see beyond her family's scandal and her outward appearance, but the fear of being used held her back. She couldn't let her guard down because every time she did, she was reminded of the betrayals of her past. Isabella's inner turmoil was amplified by the feeling that she was alone in a world full of people who were only interested in her for what she could offer them. The loneliness that came from this constant distrust weighed on her, and the emptiness she felt grew more profound with each passing day. This loneliness prevents Isabella from finding true joy in life, even with everything that others dream of. Despite living in one of the most vibrant and exciting cities in the world, Isabella could not escape the deep sense of unhappiness that accompanied her. She lived in luxury, surrounded by beautiful things, but none of it brought her the peace or joy she longed for. To the outside world, she had it all: the perfect apartment, the designer clothes, the glamorous lifestyle. But to Isabella, these were just empty shells, unable to fill the gaping hole inside her. The loneliness she experienced was not just about being physically alone. It was an emotional and psychological isolation. She was disconnected from herself and from the world around her. Even in moments of success and achievement, Isabella found herself unable to fully enjoy the fruits of her labor. The pressure of maintaining appearances and the fear of being abandoned again overshadowed any sense of happiness she could have felt. Isabella longed for something deeper: genuine human connection, love, and understanding. But she couldn't shake the feeling that no matter how hard she tried, she would never be able to find it. The wealth and success that surrounded her only served as a reminder of how far she had fallen from the life she once knew, and how empty she felt despite all her achievements. The loneliness she carried made everything seem meaningless, and it became clear to Isabella that no amount of money, status, or material possessions could ever replace the love and connection she so desperately craved. The fateful meeting and the relationship with William Lancaster. The chance encounter with William Lancaster. It was an ordinary day in New York City when Isabella Devereux found herself sitting on the cold sidewalk, her weary eyes gazing at the bustling crowds around her. Despite the glittering lights and the promises of luxury that the city represented, she felt disconnected from it all. Her designer shoes, tailored dress, and flawless makeup were all part of a facade she had built to shield herself from the emptiness she felt inside. The weight of her past, her family's downfall, and the loneliness that had become her constant companion made everything feel meaningless. William Lancaster, on the other hand, was the kind of man who seemed to have it all: success, wealth, power, and influence. Yet, despite all of this, he too was battling his own demons. Having been left by his fiancée, Olivia Harrington, for another man, William's pride had been wounded, and his arrogance had only deepened as he sought to fill the void Olivia's departure had left. He had built a life of luxury and opulence, but he carried with him the bitterness of betrayal and rejection. As he walked along the city's busy streets, his eyes happened to fall on Isabella, who sat quietly, seemingly lost in her own world. Her posture, though regal and composed, caught his attention. She was beautiful, yes, but it was something else, a certain vulnerability in her eyes that intrigued him. Isabella was far from invisible, yet in that moment, she looked so alone, and this sparked something in William. He approached her cautiously, drawn by an urge he couldn't quite explain. He had no real reason to engage with a woman like her, but something about her presence beckoned him. "Need some help?" William asked, his voice smooth and calculating, his gaze fixed on Isabella. Isabella lifted her eyes and met his, her expression guarded, but not unfazed. "I'm fine," she replied, her tone cool but tinged with the faintest hint of defiance. A flash of surprise crossed William's face. No one spoke to him this way. Most people bowed down to him, admired him for his wealth and status. Yet, this woman seemed entirely uninterested in what he had to offer. William's intrigue grew, and he quickly found himself offering her something that would shake up both of their lives. "I'm going to a very exclusive event this evening. It's a gala for high society, and I'd love for you to join me," he said with a devil-may-care smile. "I'll make sure you have everything you need: a dress, a car, a place in the spotlight." Isabella raised an eyebrow. This man was unlike anyone she had met before. He wasn't offering kindness or support. He was offering an opportunity to be a trophy, a temporary distraction. She considered his offer for a moment. What did she have to lose? In a city that had shown her nothing but emptiness, why not accept? So she did. "I'll go, but only because I'm curious," she said, her voice laced with an air of challenge. For William, the decision had been a calculated one. He had been struggling with the idea of confronting Olivia at this event, but he also knew he wanted to show her that he had moved on. What better way to make her jealous than by showing up with a woman as mysterious and stunning as Isabella? Little did he know, this decision would mark the beginning of a deep and complicated journey for both of them. William Lancaster, a millionaire's pride and pain. William Lancaster was not a man who easily allowed his emotions to control him. He had built his empire through sheer determination, using his intellect, charm, and ambition to carve out a name for himself in the cutthroat world of finance. Yet, behind the polished veneer of success and power, William was deeply scarred by the betrayal of his ex-fiancée, Olivia Harrington. Olivia had once been the love of his life, the woman he had planned to marry and build a future with. But that future was shattered when she left him for another man, a decision that left William feeling humiliated and abandoned. In the years that followed, William used his wealth and influence to mask the hurt and anger that lingered. He buried himself in work, throwing lavish parties, and surrounding himself with the kind of people who admired him for his status, not his vulnerability. But the truth was, William had never truly gotten over Olivia. His pride had been bruised, and the sting of rejection still haunted him. Even in the midst of his luxurious lifestyle, he felt an emptiness that no amount of money or success could fill. When he met Isabella, he saw in her a perfect tool to heal his wounded pride. He knew that bringing her to Olivia's event would make Olivia question her decision to leave him. But there was something about Isabella's cool demeanor and the way she held herself that captivated William in a way he hadn't expected. She wasn't like the other women he had encountered. She didn't fall at his feet or worship him for his wealth. Instead, she held herself with quiet dignity, and William couldn't help but admire her for it. He began to wonder if she was just a pawn in his game to win back Olivia's attention, or if there was more to her than met the eye. As the night of the gala drew closer, William found himself thinking about Isabella more and more, intrigued by her strength, her mystery, and the emotions she stirred within him. He realized, in that moment, that this night might not go as planned. The woman he had initially seen as a mere tool for revenge was starting to become something far more important to him. Using Isabella as a tool for revenge. When William first met Isabella, he had no intention of developing any deep feelings for her. His plan was simple: he needed someone to help him get under Olivia's skin, to make her feel the sting of regret for leaving him. Olivia had moved on, and William was determined to show her that he, too, had moved past their relationship. He wanted to show her that he was capable of finding someone else, someone more beautiful, more intriguing, someone who could make her jealous. Isabella, with her striking beauty and enigmatic demeanor, was the perfect candidate. William thought that, by taking her to the gala, he could create the kind of dramatic scene that would make Olivia question her choices. The thought of seeing Olivia's face when she saw him with Isabella filled William with a sense of satisfaction. He would finally have the upper hand. But what he didn't expect was the way Isabella began to change his perspective. At first, he saw her as a tool, someone to use to fuel his ego and make Olivia jealous. But as he spent more time with Isabella, something shifted. He noticed the way she carried herself, the way her eyes held a certain sadness, and the way she never let herself be manipulated by anyone, even him. He began to realize that Isabella was not the simple distraction he had imagined. She was far more complex, and the feelings he had started to develop for her were not part of his plan. William found himself questioning his motives. Was he really just trying to get revenge on Olivia, or was he beginning to feel something real for Isabella? The lines between manipulation and genuine emotion started to blur, and William couldn't deny the connection that had developed between them. Isabella wasn't just a pawn in his game. She was someone who had the power to change his life in ways he hadn't anticipated. The developing relationship between William and Isabella. As the weeks passed, William and Isabella's relationship continued to evolve in ways neither of them could have predicted. What had started as a scheme to make Olivia jealous gradually transformed into something deeper. Isabella, initially hesitant to get involved with someone like William, began to see him in a new light. She had been skeptical of him at first, viewing him as just another rich man trying to use her for his own purposes. But as they spent more time together, she began to realize that there was more to William than the arrogance he displayed on the surface. William, too, found himself growing closer to Isabella. He had initially thought of her as a tool to settle the score with Olivia, but now he couldn't help but admire her strength, resilience, and the way she had been able to survive in a world that had been so unkind to her. Isabella had been through so much, yet she carried herself with grace and dignity. William found himself drawn to her, not because of her beauty or status, but because of the person she was beneath it all. Isabella, in turn, began to let down her guard. She had never trusted anyone easily, especially not men, but there was something about William that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. She found herself confiding in him, sharing her hopes, dreams, and fears. She realized that, despite his flaws and the bitterness he still carried from his past, William was someone who genuinely cared for her. And for the first time in a long time, Isabella allowed herself to believe in the possibility of love. Their relationship was not without its complications. William's unresolved feelings for Olivia still lingered, and Isabella's fear of being used once again held her back from fully embracing the connection they shared. But as the tension between them grew, so did their feelings for each other. What had started as a means of revenge had transformed into something far more meaningful, a deep and authentic connection that neither of them had expected. Despite their initial motives and the emotional baggage they carried, Isabella and William began to find solace in each other. They were no longer just two people trying to fill the void left by their pasts. They were partners, learning to navigate the complexities of love, trust, and redemption together. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: what had begun as a game of revenge had become a journey towards something far more profound. The relationship between William and Isabella. At the beginning of their relationship, William Lancaster saw Isabella as nothing more than a tool for his revenge against Olivia Harrington. William's pride had been shattered by Olivia's betrayal, and he sought to make her feel the sting of regret. In his mind, using Isabella, a beautiful yet seemingly vulnerable woman, would be the perfect way to achieve this goal. He wanted to show Olivia that he had moved on, that he could have someone just as captivating as she was, if not more. For William, Isabella was simply a means to an end, nothing more than a pawn in his game of revenge. But as time went on, William began to realize that Isabella was far more than he had initially perceived. He had expected her to be easy to manipulate, just another woman willing to bask in the spotlight of his wealth and status. However, he quickly discovered that she was anything but predictable. Isabella wasn't the type of woman to be controlled, and she certainly didn't bow to his every whim. Instead, she stood her ground, her sharp wit and quiet strength challenging William in ways he had never experienced before. The more time they spent together, the more William began to see Isabella's true nature. She was intelligent, independent, and, above all, resilient. She had been through unimaginable hardships and yet had managed to hold herself together, refusing to let life's cruel twists break her. What William had initially mistaken for weakness was, in fact, an incredible inner strength. Isabella's ability to survive and navigate the harshest of circumstances began to captivate him, and over time, he found himself drawn to her not because of her beauty or her ability to make Olivia jealous, but because of the person she was beneath it all. Isabella's strength, however, went beyond what William had expected. She wasn't just tough on the outside, she had a fierce sense of self-worth that seemed to radiate from within. As she started to open up to him, William realized that she had a remarkable ability to understand people, to see through their facades and motivations. Isabella wasn't easily fooled, and she didn't let anyone take advantage of her. Her capacity for self-reliance and her determination to live on her own terms began to challenge William's worldview. In many ways, she made him question the very foundation of his life, the wealth, the power, and the status he had fought so hard to build. Their relationship slowly shifted from a game of revenge to something much deeper, much more complicated. William began to care for Isabella in ways he hadn't anticipated. The more he got to know her, the more he admired her. Her honesty, her authenticity, and her ability to confront her past head-on without fear were qualities that William hadn't seen in many people. Isabella didn't just survive, she thrived. And it was this strength that William found impossible to ignore. As Isabella's influence grew in William's life, he began to reevaluate his own beliefs. The cold, calculating man he once was started to soften, and for the first time in a long while, he began to experience emotions he had long suppressed. Isabella's presence brought out a side of him he had kept buried beneath layers of arrogance and pride. It wasn't just about winning against Olivia anymore. It was about something far more meaningful, connecting with someone who truly understood him, someone who saw past the surface and cared for the person he was at his core. But while William's feelings for Isabella were growing stronger, she too began to see him in a different light. Initially, Isabella had viewed William as just another powerful, wealthy man who wanted to control her. She had kept her distance, wary of his intentions, knowing all too well how easily people like him could manipulate her for their own gain. But over time, as they spent more time together, Isabella began to see the vulnerability beneath his polished exterior. William wasn't just the arrogant businessman he appeared to be, he was a man who had been hurt, a man who had been betrayed, and a man who was still searching for meaning in his life. Isabella started to notice the little things about William, the way his eyes softened when he talked about his past, the way he struggled with his feelings for Olivia, and the way he listened to her without judgment. She realized that, despite his flaws and his complicated past, William was someone she could trust. Slowly but surely, she began to let her guard down, allowing herself to feel the warmth of his affection. She started to believe that for the first time in years, she could be safe, not just physically, but emotionally, in his presence. However, even as she allowed herself to open up to him, Isabella couldn't fully let go of her fear. She had been burned too many times by people who had pretended to care for her, only to abandon her when it suited them. But William was different. He didn't just take from her, he gave. He gave her attention, he gave her support, and, most importantly, he gave her space to be herself. She had never felt so free in a relationship before, and this made her question whether she was ready to take the next step. Despite the complexity of their connection, both William and Isabella knew that they were in uncharted territory. They had started this journey with entirely different motivations, yet somewhere along the way, their paths had intertwined in a way neither of them could have predicted. Their feelings for each other were no longer just about revenge or mutual convenience. They had become something real, something profound. But as much as Isabella had come to care for William, she still struggled with the fear of losing herself in him. She had spent so many years fighting to maintain her independence, her sense of self, that the thought of surrendering to someone else, no matter how much she loved them, was terrifying. But as William continued to show her love and patience, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have both, her independence and a deep, meaningful connection with someone else. William, for his part, found himself in a similar situation. The man who had once believed that he could control every aspect of his life, including his emotions, was now grappling with feelings he had never expected to experience. He had always prided himself on being in control, but with Isabella, he found himself wanting to surrender to something bigger than himself. Their relationship had transformed from a simple transaction to a deep emotional bond, and William realized that he was no longer the man he had once been. Together, they began to build something new, something that was not defined by their pasts or by the expectations of others. It was a relationship based on trust, mutual respect, and a shared desire for a better future. And while there were still obstacles to overcome and emotional scars to heal, both William and Isabella knew that they were on the right path. Their journey had only just begun, and they were ready to face whatever came next, side by side. The change in their relationship. As Isabella spent more time with William, she began to find herself in ways she had never imagined. Initially, her focus had been on survival, on keeping her head above the water after losing everything she once held dear. But with William's support, something shifted within her. He wasn't just a temporary solution to her loneliness or a source of distraction. William became the catalyst for Isabella's transformation. Slowly, she began to rebuild not only her life, but also her inner strength. Her confidence, once shattered by her family's downfall, started to blossom once again. Isabella began to reawaken dreams she had buried deep within herself. She had spent so many years trying to make sense of her loss and put one foot in front of the other that she had forgotten what it felt like to have aspirations, to feel that fire of ambition that once drove her. William had shown her what it meant to believe in herself again, and with each passing day, Isabella remembered the dreams she had as a young girl, the ones she had let slip away in the face of adversity. In the presence of William, she no longer felt like a victim of her circumstances. His unwavering belief in her abilities and his gentle encouragement to pursue her passions ignited a spark she had thought was long extinguished. With his support, Isabella started to make plans for her future, focusing on her goals and building a life that was truly her own, independent of her past and the mistakes of those around her. William's belief in her gave her the strength to take the first steps toward reclaiming her life. William had always been a man of action, and his encouragement wasn't just words, it was tangible. He helped Isabella navigate the murky waters of self-doubt, lifting her up when she faltered and reminding her of her worth when she forgot. He didn't do it for personal gain or out of pity. He did it because he genuinely cared about her well-being. He became a sounding board for her fears, an ally in her quest to rediscover who she was. Over time, Isabella began to see herself as a whole person again, someone who deserved happiness, success, and love. However, despite the progress she had made, Isabella's journey wasn't without its struggles. She still fought against the emotional scars of her past. The wounds of betrayal, rejection, and heartbreak were not so easily healed. At times, Isabella would question whether she was truly worthy of the love and support William was offering her. Could she ever fully trust herself again? Could she trust him? Was she truly capable of finding happiness after everything she had been through? There were days when her insecurities crept back in, when the fears of failure and rejection haunted her. She feared that her past would always define her, that she would never be able to fully escape the shadow of the girl who had lost everything. She found herself asking, what if I can't change? What if I'm still the broken woman I was before? These feelings of uncertainty were difficult to shake, and they often left her questioning her place in William's world. Was she just a project to him? Would he ever truly accept her as she was, with all her flaws and scars? But as their relationship deepened, Isabella realized something significant: she wasn't alone in her struggles. William, too, had his own demons. Together, they learned how to lean on each other, to build trust in one another, and to confront their individual fears. William didn't ask Isabella to be perfect, nor did he expect her to be without flaws. He accepted her as she was, and in turn, Isabella started to accept herself. She learned that healing wasn't about perfection, it was about progress. And she was making progress, even if it didn't always feel like it. Their bond grew stronger as they navigated these emotional challenges together. It was in the quiet moments, the late-night conversations, and the shared experiences that Isabella began to see the true depth of her feelings for William. She realized that she had fallen in love with him, not because of his wealth or his status, but because of the way he had treated her. He saw her for who she was, not for what she had lost. His unwavering support, kindness, and genuine care made Isabella feel safe in a way she had never felt before. As the days went by, Isabella's feelings for William deepened. The attraction she had initially felt for him had evolved into something much more powerful. She wasn't just grateful for what he had done for her. She was beginning to understand that she had grown to love him in ways she hadn't anticipated. His presence in her life had opened her heart in ways that she hadn't known were possible. The walls she had built around herself were slowly crumbling, and in their place was a love that felt real and unshakable. But even as Isabella embraced her feelings for William, she struggled to express them. The vulnerability that came with love was daunting. She had been hurt before, and the idea of exposing her heart again terrified her. She wanted to believe that she was deserving of love, but the past made her doubt herself. The fear of being abandoned, of losing everything again, was a constant companion. Yet, with each passing day, she grew more confident in her connection with William. The love they shared was no longer just a fleeting emotion. It was something real and tangible, something she was willing to fight for. William, for his part, continued to be a steady source of support for Isabella. He never pushed her to move faster than she was ready to. He understood the weight of her past and respected her need for time and space. In a world where people often rushed into things without thought, William's patience and understanding were a breath of fresh air for Isabella. She felt safe with him, not just physically, but emotionally as well. He was there when she needed him, always offering a steady hand to hold and a listening ear. In the midst of all this growth, Isabella began to realize something profound. She was not just in love with William. She was in love with herself again. Through his love and support, she had rediscovered parts of herself that she had long buried. She had learned to love the woman she was becoming, and in doing so, she had found a love that was stronger than anything she had ever known. As their relationship continued to evolve, so did Isabella. She was no longer defined by her past. She was becoming the woman she had always been destined to be, and William was right there by her side. Together, they were building a future, one filled with love, trust, and a deep sense of belonging. The emotional connection between Isabella and William. As the days turned into weeks, Isabella began to realize something that had been slowly brewing within her heart. Her feelings for William were no longer just about gratitude or responding to his kindness. At first, it was easy for her to justify her emotional attachment to him as a form of repayment for all the support he had shown her. But deep down, Isabella knew it was more than that. The connection she felt for him had grown into something much more profound. It wasn't just about what he had done for her. It was about who he was, how he made her feel, and the way he had consistently stood by her side. Isabella began to see the complexity of their relationship. Initially, she had approached it with skepticism, unsure of her own emotions and questioning his intentions. But as time passed, she started to understand that what she had with William was real. He wasn't just a fleeting figure in her life. He had become someone she could depend on, someone who made her feel safe and valued. More than just a romantic partner, William had become her confidant, her support system, and her anchor. She realized that their relationship was not just about love. It was about companionship, mutual respect, and the kind of support that went beyond the surface level. As Isabella allowed herself to embrace these feelings, she started to notice the ways in which their relationship was helping her heal. William had always been there for her, not just during the high points, but also during the low moments. He was the one who listened when she needed someone to talk to, the one who reassured her when she doubted herself, and the one who stood by her when she struggled with her past. Their connection had become something far deeper than either of them had anticipated. It wasn't simply about attraction or the desire to fill a void, it was about a partnership, a bond that was built on trust, understanding, and the willingness to stand together through life's challenges. In the back of Isabella's mind, there had always been a lingering fear of attachment. After all, she had been abandoned once before, and the idea of trusting someone so completely was daunting. But with William, the fear started to fade. He had shown her, time and time again, that he was different. He wasn't asking her to be perfect. He was asking her to be herself, to allow herself to heal and grow. And slowly, she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was worthy of love and happiness after everything she had been through. While Isabella's feelings for William were becoming clearer, William himself was also experiencing a shift in his emotions. He had initially seen their connection as a way to get back at Olivia, to make her jealous and remind her of what she had lost. But as he spent more time with Isabella, he couldn't ignore the fact that his feelings for her had grown beyond mere revenge. His attraction to her had deepened into something more meaningful, something that transcended his original motives. William had always been a man of action, but with Isabella, he found himself being more patient, more understanding, and more open to vulnerability. The emotional bond between them had begun to overshadow the bitterness and resentment he once felt for Olivia. Isabella had become a source of comfort and solace for William in ways he had never expected. She didn't just fill a space in his life. She made him a better person. He admired her strength, her resilience, and her ability to remain grounded despite everything she had lost. Her beauty, both inside and out, captivated him. But it was her soul, her capacity to love, to forgive, and to move forward that truly drew him in. For William, it was a revelation. He had come into this relationship with a certain agenda, but as his feelings for Isabella grew stronger, he realized that his initial intentions no longer mattered. What mattered now was their connection, their shared experiences, and the way they made each other feel. Isabella had become someone he wanted to protect, to cherish, and to build a future with. She wasn't just a pawn in his plan to hurt Olivia. She was someone who had touched his heart in ways he had never expected. Their relationship, once rooted in revenge and uncertainty, had now blossomed into something beautiful and real. Isabella had taught William how to be more present, more empathetic, and more patient. In return, he had helped her rediscover parts of herself that had been buried for so long. Together, they had become each other's strength, and their love had evolved from something fragile to something unshakable. As Isabella and William navigated their relationship, they realized that they had both been on their own journeys of self-discovery. What had started as a mere connection between two people with complicated pasts had transformed into a love story built on trust, respect, and the desire to grow together. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments when both of them struggled with their own insecurities and fears. But with each challenge they faced, their bond grew stronger. And while they both had their own emotional baggage to deal with, they had found something in each other that made it easier to confront those fears. Isabella, once paralyzed by her past, was now learning to embrace her future, and William, who had used to define himself by his success and status, was discovering a new sense of purpose in his relationship with her. They were no longer defined by their pasts, but by the love they shared and the strength they found in each other. Isabella realized that what she had with William was more than just love. It was a partnership that allowed her to be her true self. And in doing so, she had found the courage to let go of her fears and embrace the future they could build together. William, too, found that the love he had for Isabella had become the anchor he never knew he needed. Together, they were rewriting the story of their lives one chapter at a time. The confrontation with Olivia and William's dilemma. Olivia Harrington and the painful past. Olivia Harrington had always been a figure of power and influence, both in New York's elite social circles and in William Lancaster's life. Once his girlfriend, Olivia had left him for another man, a betrayal that cut deep. But her role in his past was not the only connection they shared. Olivia also had a sinister link to Isabella Devereux's tragic downfall. It was Olivia's manipulation that helped orchestrate the financial ruin of Isabella's family, sending the Devereux empire crashing down. Isabella, who had once lived a life of luxury and privilege, now found herself struggling to rebuild after the scandal that Olivia had played a crucial part in. Olivia was the type of woman who never let go of her own sense of control, and she wielded it mercilessly. After the Devereux family's downfall, Isabella was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. Olivia, however, seemed untouched by the chaos she had caused, using her connections and wealth to shield herself from any consequences. Her social image remained immaculate, even though her actions had ruined countless lives, including Isabella's. Olivia didn't just want to remain at the top, she wanted to keep everyone beneath her firmly in their place. Her coldness and ruthlessness knew no bounds, and she would stop at nothing to protect her status. As Isabella started to rebuild herself, Olivia saw her as a threat, not just because of the past, but because of the way Isabella was gaining strength. Olivia's perception of Isabella was that of a pawn, someone to be put in her place. Isabella's very existence seemed to remind Olivia of the power she had once had, the power that had slipped away when she abandoned William for another man. Olivia couldn't bear the thought of Isabella rising from the ashes of her former life, and she was determined to make sure it didn't happen. In Olivia's eyes, Isabella was a constant reminder of a life she had once wanted and lost. As Isabella began to find her voice again, Olivia's resentment grew. She couldn't allow Isabella to stand in her way, so she began targeting her in every way possible through subtle manipulation, through social gatherings, and by undermining her confidence whenever they crossed paths. Olivia's tactics were calculated and cruel, aimed at putting Isabella back in her place. But Isabella, empowered by her growing self-assurance, wasn't going to let Olivia control her life again. Olivia had always been the person who thrived on power, and she couldn't allow anyone to threaten her position, especially not someone like Isabella. Her attempts to keep Isabella in a state of helplessness were growing more desperate, and soon enough, their rivalry would reach a boiling point. For Isabella, this wasn't just about overcoming her past, it was about confronting the woman who had played a part in destroying her family's future and claiming her place in the world once again. As Isabella fought to move forward, Olivia fought to hold her back, creating a clash that seemed inevitable. Every encounter between the two women was charged with tension, as Olivia's attempts to remain in control were met with Isabella's growing resistance. In the midst of their rivalry, William found himself caught between the two women, his emotions torn between the lingering shadows of his past with Olivia and the complicated, yet undeniable, feelings he was developing for Isabella. Olivia, with her cold determination and unyielding desire for power, stood as an obstacle in Isabella's path. A woman who would stop at nothing to preserve the life she had built for herself, even if it meant using others as pawns. Her actions spoke volumes about the person she had become, calculating, cold-hearted, and driven by a need to remain on top at all costs. Olivia's legacy was one of manipulation and deceit, and as much as she tried to maintain her image of a perfect socialite, the cracks in her facade were beginning to show. But would Isabella, with the strength she had gained, be able to finally stand up to Olivia? Or would Olivia's power and cunning prove too much for her to overcome? The answer would lie in the ultimate confrontation between these two women, each determined to claim her own version of the future. The tension was palpable as Isabella and Olivia faced each other more frequently in social settings, each encounter more intense than the last. While Olivia saw Isabella's growing strength as a threat, Isabella saw Olivia's continued presence as a reminder of the darkness that had once overtaken her life. The battle between them was about much more than just social status or revenge. It was about reclaiming lost power and proving that neither woman could be controlled. The question remained, who would come out victorious in this high-stakes game of power and manipulation? Only time would tell as their confrontation escalated and their rivalry reached new heights. The confrontation between Isabella and Olivia. A high-profile social event in New York's elite circle becomes the stage for an intense and inevitable confrontation between Isabella Devereux and Olivia Harrington. Olivia, ever the picture of grace and poise, exudes an air of superiority as she navigates the room, her eyes scanning the crowd. She's always been used to commanding attention, but tonight, her eyes settle on Isabella, who has entered the event with an air of newfound confidence. Isabella, once vulnerable and broken, now stands tall, her demeanor radiating a sense of self-assurance that hasn't been seen before. Olivia can't help but sneer, her expression dripping with disdain as she watches Isabella from across the room. As they cross paths, Olivia makes a sharp remark, mocking Isabella's presence at such an exclusive gathering, suggesting that she's out of her depth and doesn't belong. The words are cold, cutting through the air like a knife, meant to remind Isabella of her past and her place in society. But Isabella, no longer the timid woman who would shrink under such treatment, meets Olivia's gaze with unwavering confidence. Her eyes no longer show signs of fear. Instead, they reflect strength, a strength forged through hardship and personal growth. Isabella, standing tall and composed, responds with calm poise, not allowing Olivia's words to get under her skin. She addresses Olivia with a quiet but firm voice, challenging her on her assumptions and making it clear that she no longer sees herself as a pawn in Olivia's game. Isabella's presence, once meek and uncertain, now demands respect. She no longer cares for the judgments or approval of those who once saw her as beneath them. She's no longer the woman she once was. Her transformation is evident, and it's clear that Isabella has found her power. Olivia, who is accustomed to being the dominant force in any room, feels her control slipping as Isabella stands her ground. The tension between the two women is palpable, drawing the attention of the guests around them. Olivia's snide remarks become more pointed, attempting to undermine Isabella's newfound confidence, but Isabella stands unshaken. Her voice remains steady as she calmly but assertively deflects Olivia's attacks, revealing that she no longer cares about the approval of others, particularly someone like Olivia, whose duplicity she has come to recognize all too well. In that moment, Isabella becomes not just a woman reclaiming her power, but a symbol of resilience, a woman who has fought through the deepest of personal betrayals and come out stronger on the other side. She realizes that Olivia's attacks, while meant to undermine her, no longer have the same effect. She is no longer the woman who crumbled under pressure. She is a force to be reckoned with. But Olivia, not one to back down easily, refuses to relent. She tries again and again to provoke Isabella, desperate to remind her that the past still holds weight, that Isabella's transformation is nothing more than a facade. Olivia's bitterness stems from her own insecurities and fear of losing the power she has so carefully cultivated. For her, this confrontation is about more than just Isabella. It's about her own fragile grip on the status and influence that she believes define her worth. As the battle of words escalates, William Lancaster, who has been observing the exchange from a distance, feels his emotions beginning to stir. His mind is torn between the two women, his past with Olivia and his growing feelings for Isabella. Watching the tension unfold, William realizes how much his emotions have shifted. The woman who once held his heart, Olivia, is no longer the object of his affections. Instead, it is Isabella, the woman who has defied the odds, who has transformed herself from a broken soul into a strong, independent woman that he finds himself drawn to. William's internal conflict becomes evident as his gaze shifts between Olivia and Isabella. He can't deny the pull he feels towards Isabella, the way her confidence and strength have ignited something in him that he hadn't realized was there. At the same time, he feels a lingering resentment towards Olivia, a resentment rooted in their past, in her betrayal, and in the way she continues to try to control him. The emotional turbulence that rises within him reflects the complexity of the situation. William is torn between his old feelings for Olivia and the undeniable attraction he feels for Isabella, whose strength and resilience are becoming more and more apparent. The confrontation between Isabella and Olivia reaches a boiling point, with the tension in the air so thick that it feels almost tangible. For Isabella, this moment represents a turning point. She has faced Olivia, a woman who once held power over her life, and come out on top. But for Olivia, This encounter is a reminder that she is no longer the one in control. As the evening continues, the animosity between the two women lingers, leaving a sense of unresolved tension in the air, while William is left to confront the shifting dynamics in his own heart. The night ends, but the conflict between Isabella and Olivia is far from over, and William's inner turmoil only intensifies as he realizes that his feelings for Isabella have evolved into something much more complex than he ever anticipated. The battle for power and control is no longer just a contest between two women, it has now become a battle for William's heart and loyalty. The question that remains is, will Isabella and Olivia's rivalry continue to escalate, or will the emotional bonds that are forming between Isabella and William be enough to overcome the forces pulling them in opposite directions? The tension between the three of them is far from over, and the consequences of this night will reverberate for some time to come. William's inner conflict. Despite Isabella's transformation and her newfound strength, William finds himself struggling with conflicting emotions about his feelings for her. In the early stages of their relationship, Isabella had been nothing more than a pawn in his complex game to exact revenge on Olivia, the woman who had once broken his heart. But as time has passed, William has begun to see Isabella in a new light. The woman he once thought of as a tool for his own purposes has become someone entirely different, a woman who has endured hardship, fought for her own survival, and found a strength that rivals his own. William finds himself unable to deny the attraction he feels for her. There is a fire in Isabella that he never anticipated, a resilience that has drawn him in, but there is also something unsettling about his feelings. He has always been someone in control, someone who prides himself on knowing exactly what he wants and going after it. But with Isabella, the lines are blurred. He can no longer tell if his feelings are purely a product of his emotional turmoil or if this is something deeper, something real. What complicates matters even further is the looming presence of Olivia in William's life. His past with Olivia, their shared history, and the unfinished business between them continue to weigh heavily on him. Olivia was once the center of his world, his first love, the woman he thought he would build a life with. The wounds she inflicted when she left him for another man have never fully healed, and now, the thought of being with Isabella feels like betrayal. William's heart is still tethered to the past, and he finds himself unable to fully let go of the woman who once held his heart. For William, this inner conflict is agonizing. His mind is divided between the powerful attraction he feels for Isabella and the ghost of his former relationship with Olivia. He finds himself constantly comparing the two women, measuring their worth against one another, even though he knows deep down that they are not the same. Isabella is strong, self-assured, and independent in a way that Olivia never was. She has a fire within her that makes William feel both challenged and alive, yet he is unsure if he can fully embrace this connection, knowing that he is still carrying the weight of his past with Olivia. As William grapples with his feelings for Isabella, he becomes more and more aware of how much his unresolved emotions for Olivia are holding him back. He cannot seem to escape the past, and it's preventing him from moving forward with Isabella. Part of him still feels a sense of loyalty to Olivia, a loyalty that is rooted in their history and the love they once shared. But another part of him, the part that has been awakened by Isabella's strength and her ability to stand up to him and to the world, is telling him to let go of the past and embrace the future. This internal battle between past and present is a constant struggle for William. He wants to move forward with Isabella, but the emotional baggage he carries from his relationship with Olivia is a weight he cannot easily cast aside. He knows that in order to truly be with Isabella, he must confront the ghost of his past and let go of the anger, resentment, and unresolved feelings that continue to haunt him. The complexity of William's feelings for Isabella only intensifies as he begins to recognize that what he thought was simply an act of revenge has evolved into something much more profound. His love for Isabella is not just about getting back at Olivia anymore. It is about wanting to build something real, something meaningful, with a woman who has proven herself to be everything Olivia was not. Isabella is strong, intelligent, and capable, and she has shown him a side of himself that he never thought he could uncover. But still, A part of him wonders if he is simply trying to replace Olivia with someone who is, in some ways, her opposite. This realization creates a sense of confusion and anxiety in William. He begins to question whether he can truly love Isabella without the shadow of Olivia hanging over him. He feels trapped between the two women, one who represents his past and the other who represents his future. As much as he wants to move forward, he cannot escape the lingering attachment he feels to Olivia, nor can he deny the emotional pull he feels toward Isabella. As William's inner conflict continues, he becomes more withdrawn, more distant, unsure of how to navigate the growing connection between him and Isabella. He starts to push her away, retreating into himself, unable to open up completely to the woman who has captured his heart. This behavior only causes more tension between them, and Isabella, who has come to rely on William's support and affection, begins to question his commitment to her. William's inner turmoil is not just about his feelings for Isabella, it is also about the type of man he wants to be. He knows that in order to move forward, he must let go of the past, but doing so requires him to confront his deepest fears and insecurities. The idea of losing Olivia for good, of admitting that his past with her is truly over, is something he is not sure he is ready to face. Yet, as he grows closer to Isabella, he begins to understand that in order to truly embrace the future, he must first free himself from the chains of the past. In the end, William's struggle is one of self-discovery. It is about finding the courage to release the grip of past trauma and fully embrace the love and connection that Isabella offers. But the road ahead is not an easy one, and William will need to confront his demons if he is ever going to be the man Isabella deserves. The tension between the past and present, between Olivia and Isabella, will continue to shape their relationship, but it is only by facing his inner conflict that William can hope to build a future with the woman he truly loves. The revenge plan and the unexpected outcome. The perfect revenge plan. Isabella and William had shared a common enemy, Olivia Harrington, and they knew that the best way to make her pay for the suffering she had caused Isabella's family was to bring down her empire. William, driven by his own personal vendetta against Olivia for breaking his heart, saw this as the perfect opportunity to use Olivia's own arrogance and ruthlessness against her. They both knew that revenge would be sweet, but neither expected how much the plan would change them as individuals. They began by observing Olivia's every move. William, with his vast resources, used his influence in the business world to dig into her financial dealings. He knew Olivia, despite her charm and polished appearance, had a lot to hide. Behind her success, there was a trail of deceit, fraudulent deals, manipulation, and business ventures that operated on the edge of legality. William and Isabella knew if they could expose her for what she really was, the consequences would be catastrophic. They decided to take a subtle approach at first. By targeting Olivia's business partners, they carefully orchestrated a series of events that would sow doubt and distrust in her relationships. They made sure to leak small pieces of information to the press, just enough to plant the seeds of suspicion among her investors and close associates. William used his connections to sway public opinion, ensuring that the whispers of Olivia's corruption and manipulation would slowly spread throughout the high society. Meanwhile, Isabella began to infiltrate Olivia's social circle. She attended galas and events where Olivia was known to make appearances, always looking her best and appearing unfazed by the rivalry. Isabella's calm and confident demeanor began to unsettle Olivia. It was clear to everyone that Isabella had found her strength, and the tables were beginning to turn. Olivia, who had once humiliated Isabella, now found herself questioning her position and influence. Isabella knew that by simply showing up at these events, she could chip away at Olivia's carefully crafted image. The perfect revenge was not just about financial ruin for Olivia, it was about breaking her spirit. Isabella had already lost everything once, and now, with William's help, she would make sure Olivia knew the sting of losing everything she had worked for. The plan was set in motion, and each move brought them one step closer to their goal. The detailed plan to topple Olivia. Together, Isabella and William crafted a meticulous plan. They knew they had to be careful, A single mistake could give Olivia a chance to fight back. They needed to ensure that the evidence they gathered would be undeniable. They used their combined skills, William's business acumen and Isabella's social intelligence, to orchestrate a series of events that would have Olivia scrambling to protect her empire. They started by targeting Olivia's weakest link, her financial dealings. Isabella discovered that Olivia had been involved in several shady deals with some less than reputable businessmen. By carefully leaking details to the right people, they were able to create doubt among Olivia's investors. William used his position to ensure that these rumors spread quickly, fueling the fire and making it hard for Olivia to deny any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Isabella worked behind the scenes, connecting with key figures who had once been close to Olivia. She planted seeds of distrust, subtly manipulating them into questioning Olivia's loyalty and intentions. As more people started to question her integrity, Olivia's hold on her empire began to slip. Her financial backers started pulling their support, and her business deals began to fall apart. While their actions were driven by the need for revenge, William and Isabella began to notice subtle changes within themselves. The power they held over Olivia felt good, but it also made them question the morality of their actions. As the plan unfolded, they couldn't help but reflect on the consequences of their pursuit of justice. What started as a mission to destroy Olivia's career soon became something more complex, something that revealed the darker side of their personalities and the motivations that drove them. The unexpected personal changes. Throughout the course of their carefully planned revenge, Isabella and William began to change in ways they hadn't anticipated. William, who had once been driven purely by his desire to get back at Olivia, found himself growing more and more concerned for Isabella's well-being. The more they worked together, the more he realized that his feelings for her were evolving into something deeper. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about love and trust. Isabella, too, found herself questioning the path she had chosen. She had always prided herself on her independence and strength. But now, as she saw the impact of their plan on Olivia's life, she started to ask herself if revenge was truly the way to move forward. The emotional weight of their actions began to take its toll on her, and she found herself looking at William in a new light, not just as an ally in her quest for justice, but as someone who had become an integral part of her life. The revenge that they had set in motion was not just destroying Olivia, it was also changing them both. Their relationship had gone from a calculated partnership to something more personal, more real. The bond they shared had deepened, and with it came the realization that they had both been looking for something more in life, something beyond the emptiness that had defined their pasts. The perfect revenge and the turning point in their relationship. As the plan reached its climax, Olivia's downfall became inevitable. Her investors were pulling out, her business partners were turning against her, and her public image had been irreparably damaged. The once powerful woman who had tried to destroy Isabella's family was now scrambling to hold on to what little she had left. She was forced to face the consequences of her actions, and it was clear that her empire was crumbling. But for Isabella and William, the success of their plan brought more than just satisfaction, it brought a turning point in their relationship. As Olivia's world fell apart, Isabella and William found themselves facing a new future, one where revenge was no longer the driving force. They had succeeded in their mission, but they now had to confront the question: what came next? The perfect revenge had come at a cost. The journey they had taken together had changed them both in ways they hadn't expected. Their relationship had deepened, and they realized that what had begun as an act of vengeance had turned into something more meaningful. As they watched Olivia's empire crumble, they understood that the power of their love for each other was the true victory. In the end, Isabella and William had not only destroyed the woman who had caused so much pain in their lives, but they had also built something stronger, a relationship based on trust, mutual respect, and love. And that, they realized, was the true prize. The love that blossomed during revenge. As Isabella and William worked side by side, plotting their revenge against Olivia, something unexpected began to stir inside her. What had started as a mission to destroy Olivia's empire and settle the score for the pain she had caused, Isabella's family slowly transformed into something much deeper. As they meticulously executed their plan, Isabella started to realize that the emotions she had been suppressing for so long were starting to surface. She was falling in love with William. At first, Isabella tried to ignore the feelings that were bubbling up inside her. She had always prided herself on her independence, and love had never been a priority after everything that had happened. But as William and she grew closer, working together towards their shared goal, she couldn't deny the undeniable chemistry between them. He was more than just a partner in this revenge. He had become her confidant, her protector, and her source of strength. It wasn't just his looks or charm that had drawn her in. What Isabella found most compelling was the way William treated her, always attentive, always concerned, and always there when she needed him. He listened to her when she shared her pain, supported her when she doubted herself, and, most of all, made her feel like she mattered. This was something Isabella had been missing for years. The feeling of being valued, of being loved for who she truly was, not just for the past she carried or the wealth she once had. As their revenge plan continued, Isabella noticed the subtle changes in her feelings towards William. She began to realize that the connection they had was more than just transactional, it was real. Every time they shared a quiet moment or exchanged a look of understanding, her heart skipped a beat. Despite the revenge motivating them, there was an undeniable bond forming between them, one that could not be dismissed. However, Isabella found herself caught in an internal battle. She had always been cautious about her feelings, especially after everything that had happened with Olivia and her family's downfall. She feared that this love, which was so new and unexpected, might be a result of her need for comfort and revenge rather than genuine affection. She struggled with the idea that her feelings for William could be tainted by the context in which they had developed. Could she really trust these feelings, or was she simply using him to fill the void left by her past? The emotional turmoil was not easy to navigate. Isabella had spent years building walls around her heart to protect herself from further pain, and now she found herself slowly tearing those walls down. But it wasn't just about her own emotions. She also worried about what it meant for William. Was he using her too? Was their connection only a means to an end, a tool to achieve his revenge on Olivia? Or was it truly a bond that had developed naturally over time? Through all of this, William's actions began to speak louder than his words. While he had initially seen Isabella as a tool to make Olivia jealous, it became increasingly clear to Isabella that William cared for her in a way that went beyond revenge. The way he looked at her, the way he supported her through the ups and downs of their plan, and the way he fought alongside her showed that his feelings were genuine. Isabella began to see him not as a partner in revenge, but as someone who cared for her deeply. And for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to be vulnerable enough to accept that love. But even as she accepted her growing feelings for William, Isabella couldn't ignore the lingering fear that haunted her. Fear of being hurt again, fear of trusting too easily, and fear of the consequences of letting her guard down. Her heart ached with the weight of past betrayals, and she found herself torn between embracing this new love and protecting herself from the potential heartbreak that could follow. As she navigated these conflicting emotions, Isabella realized that love had the power to heal, even when it had been born out of a need for revenge. Her feelings for William were no longer just a reaction to the past. They were an opportunity for growth, healing, and transformation. She began to see that love, true love, could be the key to letting go of the past and moving forward into a future that was no longer defined by hurt and loss. In the quiet moments between their planning and strategizing, Isabella and William shared a new kind of intimacy. It wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was about the two of them, learning to trust each other, learning to be vulnerable, and learning to love without the weight of the past dragging them down. What started as a plan for revenge had transformed into something far more meaningful, something that neither of them had anticipated. Isabella's journey towards healing was far from over, but with William by her side, she started to believe that she could truly move on from her past. Together, they had created something more powerful than vengeance. They had created a bond that would help them face the future, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And as they continued on this journey together, Isabella realized that love, in all its complexity, could be the greatest form of revenge. The change in love. Throughout their journey of confronting the past and building a new life, Isabella and William begin to realize that their love for each other is not simply born from revenge or mere empathy. Initially, when they met, they saw each other through the lens of their past wounds and personal objectives. However, as time passed, their connection evolved, becoming deeper and more emotional. Both Isabella and William realized that their love for each other was no longer just about revenge or empathy. It had transformed into a relationship built on true values. This love became the bond that connected them not just emotionally, but spiritually. They began to understand each other on a deeper level, not only because of the past they shared, but also because of what they could build together in the future. From moments of silence to frank conversations, their relationship went beyond fleeting emotions. It became something profound in their souls. Their love was no longer merely about empathy or a means to heal past wounds. It had turned into a meaningful relationship with deep emotional ties. As time went on, they came to realize that what they shared was more than just a fleeting attraction. It was a bond that transcended the superficial reasons they had once thought were the foundation of their relationship. The connection between them had grown to embody mutual respect, understanding, and support elements that were missing from their previous experiences. This change in their feelings became an essential part of Isabella and William's personal journeys. Throughout this process, Isabella rediscovered herself. She was no longer the fragile, damaged woman who had closed herself off from the world. Instead, she had become a confident, strong, and self-loving individual. William, too, had shed the man consumed by the need for revenge and had embraced the opportunity for genuine love. Their love changed them both. It helped them understand more about themselves and the values they held dear in life. Their love was not just a simple connection, it became a driving force that helped them overcome obstacles. Facing challenges and emotional conflicts, Isabella and William stood by each other, becoming a team stronger than before. No longer two isolated individuals struggling with their own pain, they had become partners in every sense, supporting each other through all the difficulties they faced. Each hardship, each challenge, became an opportunity for them to grow stronger as a couple. Every time they encountered a difficult situation, they looked at each other and found the strength to keep going. This love became a source of power, allowing them to not only overcome difficulties, but also explore new things about themselves and each other. With each passing day, they grew stronger as individuals and as a couple. Isabella no longer felt lonely, for she had found someone to share her emotions with. William, too, was no longer burdened by the past, for he had Isabella by his side. They began to see each other in a new light, and from then on, their love was no longer a fleeting emotion, but a solid foundation in their lives. This love was not just a bond between two people, but a symbol of healing, overcoming pain, and continuous growth. Isabella and William not only changed each other's lives, but together, they created a brighter future, one where love, trust, and connection became the bedrock of their shared life. They no longer looked back at the past with sorrow or regret, but looked ahead, knowing that their love had transformed them into better versions of themselves. Together, they would face whatever the future held, united in their journey of love and self-discovery. A new life begins. After the dramatic fall of Olivia, Isabella and William finally found themselves standing on the other side of their long, arduous battle. The power dynamics that had once controlled their lives were no longer a concern, and they now had the opportunity to build something entirely new, a life without the shadows of the past hanging over them. For Isabella, the victory was more than just the downfall of a powerful adversary. It was the beginning of a journey toward healing, a chance to reclaim what had been taken from her years ago. For William, the sense of relief was palpable. He had not only avenged the woman he cared for, but also managed to break free from the emotional entanglements of his past. But even as they looked forward to this new chapter, They couldn't ignore the challenges ahead. Both Isabella and William had spent years fighting battles personal and external that left them with scars, and these scars didn't disappear overnight. The transition into their new life was not as simple as flipping a switch. They still had to face the complexities of their emotions, the weight of their past experiences, and the unhealed wounds that needed time to mend. Despite the victories, there was still work to be done. Isabella found herself at a crossroads, unsure of how to navigate the world she had once known, now that the context had completely shifted. She had been a woman defined by the riches and expectations of her family, and now she was free to build something on her own terms. But freedom came with its own set of challenges. She was no longer a princess in a gilded cage, but an individual who had to carve out her own identity, her own success. William, too, faced challenges. The revenge that had initially driven him now felt hollow in the wake of Olivia's defeat. What did he truly want now? What did he want from Isabella? Was his love for her genuine? Or had it been simply another form of revenge against the woman who had humiliated him? He found himself struggling with these questions as they tried to navigate their new relationship with all of its complexities. But despite these challenges, there was a beauty in their shared journey, a beauty in their ability to support each other. Isabella found herself relying on William in ways she had never imagined. His unwavering belief in her, his ability to see her as more than just a victim of her circumstances, gave her the strength to face each day. She had spent so long being defined by her pain, but with William at her side, she could finally imagine a future where she was not just a product of her past, but the architect of her own destiny. For William, supporting Isabella was not just an act of kindness, it was an act of healing for himself as well. His love for her, once tangled in the bitterness of revenge, had now transformed into something real. He saw in Isabella not only a woman who needed his protection, but a woman who had the strength to fight for herself. She was no longer the fragile, broken soul he had first met. She had become a force in her own right, and watching her grow into her full potential made him want to support her even more. Together, they began to build a new life, one based on mutual support, understanding, and love. Isabella started her own business, one that reflected her values and her vision for the future. She was no longer living in the shadow of her family's legacy. She was creating a legacy of her own. And William, having dealt with the emotional fallout of his past, decided to focus on what truly mattered: his relationship with Isabella, his own personal growth, and his future. But the road to rebuilding was not without its bumps. There were moments of doubt, of fear, and of insecurity. Isabella often found herself haunted by memories of her family's downfall, wondering if history might repeat itself. She feared trusting too easily, fearing that even the smallest mistake might lead to another collapse. William, too, struggled with the idea that his past with Olivia could have an even deeper effect on his present. He had to face the reality that his relationship with Isabella included were always influenced by his unresolved feelings for his past. Yet, with each passing day, they found a way to rise above these doubts. Their relationship became a source of strength, a reminder that they were not defined by their pasts, but by the choices they made in the present. Together, they created a sense of stability and security, one that allowed them to move forward with hope and optimism. Their love, built on shared experience and mutual respect, became the cornerstone of their new life. The future seemed uncertain, as all futures do, but Isabella and William had a renewed sense of purpose. They understood that the past might shape who they were, but it didn't have to define what they could become. And as they walked through life together, side by side, they realized that the true measure of their success wasn't in the material wealth they had once lost, but in the love, support, and happiness they had found in each other. Rebirth and complete freedom. Isabella's new life. Isabella Devereux had come a long way from the woman she once was. The shattered remnants of her former life, the luxurious world she had once known, the people who had turned their backs on her, were now distant memories. It was a slow, painful journey, but she had begun to rebuild her life in a way that was all her own, free from the expectations and constraints of her past. She had fought through the heartache and loss, and now she was standing stronger than ever before, ready to face the world on her own terms. Determined to regain control over her life, Isabella started to create something new for herself. She had always been sharp, intelligent, and driven, but her former circumstances had held her back. Now, in the wake of the battle she had fought, both personal and professional, Isabella knew she was ready to tap into her full potential. She decided to start her own investment firm, one that would reflect not only her sharp business acumen, but also her vision for the future. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was no longer afraid. She was used to overcoming obstacles, and she was determined to make it work. With each day that passed, Isabella dedicated herself to her business. She started small, taking on small clients, and gradually building a reputation as a reliable and strategic investor. Her firm began to grow, and she took great pride in her accomplishments. What once seemed impossible was now within her grasp. She no longer had to rely on anyone else for validation or success. She was carving out her own path, and it felt liberating. For the first time in a long time, Isabella felt in control of her destiny. Her success wasn't just financial. The transformation in her professional life mirrored her personal growth. The pain and hurt from her past, which had once kept her stuck in a cycle of fear and doubt, were gradually replaced by a sense of empowerment. Isabella learned to trust herself. She made decisions with confidence, and every success, small or large, served as a reminder of her own strength. The woman who had once felt so broken, so lost, was now a force to be reckoned with. Despite the challenges that came with her new life, Isabella knew she had achieved something remarkable. She had worked tirelessly to create a life of her own, one that no longer revolved around the mistakes of her father or the toxic relationships that had once defined her. She had created a legacy that was hers and hers alone. No one could take that from her. In the process of building her company, Isabella discovered a deeper sense of fulfillment. She wasn't just achieving financial success. She was helping others do the same. Her firm wasn't just about turning a profit, it was about supporting other women, entrepreneurs, and individuals who had been overlooked by the traditional structures of wealth and power. Isabella felt a sense of purpose that had eluded her for so long. She was not just rebuilding her life. She was helping others rebuild theirs as well. With each new client, every new partnership, and every deal she closed, Isabella's confidence grew. Her past, once a burden, became a reminder of her resilience. She was no longer the fragile woman who had suffered in silence. She had become a woman who had fought for herself, and in doing so, had created a life worth living. The freedom Isabella had worked so hard to achieve extended beyond just financial independence. She had gained the ability to make choices based on what was best for her, without being constrained by the expectations of others. She had learned how to take control of her narrative, no longer letting her past define her, but using it as fuel for her future. It wasn't just about the success she had achieved, though. Isabella found peace within herself. The emotional scars from her past, while not completely healed, no longer controlled her. She had learned to forgive not just others, but herself as well. She could look at herself in the mirror and see someone who was worthy, capable, and strong. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all. As Isabella looked back on her journey, she realized that she had created something far more meaningful than wealth or success. She had created freedom, the freedom to live life on her own terms, to pursue her dreams without fear, and to love and be loved without hesitation. The woman she had once been broken, lost, and uncertain was now a distant memory. Isabella Devereux had been reborn, and she was ready to embrace everything the future had to offer. Her life had taken an unexpected turn, but Isabella had learned to trust in herself. She knew that her journey was far from over. She had achieved so much, but there was still more to come. She had finally found the strength to live a life true to herself, and nothing, not even the shadows of her past, could take that away. 2. The development of their relationship, 750 words. As the days went by, Isabella and William's relationship grew deeper, evolving into something neither of them had initially anticipated. At the beginning, their bond was born out of necessity and revenge, a way for William to get back at Olivia and a means for Isabella to regain some semblance of control over her shattered life. However, as they spent more time together, something more profound began to develop between them, something that neither of them could have predicted. In the early stages of their relationship, there was an undeniable tension between them, fueled by their past experiences. William was still dealing with the remnants of his failed relationship with Olivia, and Isabella was navigating the complexities of healing from her own trauma. They both carried emotional baggage, but they found in each other a shared understanding of pain and loss. Slowly, they began to build a connection based not just on attraction or convenience, but on mutual respect and empathy. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but that was what made it real. There were moments of doubt, moments of vulnerability, and moments when the past seemed to haunt them both. Isabella, despite her newfound strength, struggled with the fear that she would be abandoned again, while William, despite his success, wrestled with feelings of guilt and self-doubt. But in each other, they found someone who could understand their pain, their fears, and their desires. Over time, they learned to love one another not in spite of their flaws, but because of them. William admired Isabella's resilience, her ability to rise from the ashes of her past and rebuild her life with strength and dignity. He saw her not just as a beautiful woman, but as a force of nature, someone who had faced the worst and refused to be broken by it. Isabella, on the other hand, came to appreciate William's vulnerability. She saw beyond his wealth and success, understanding that underneath it all, he was just a man who had been hurt and was trying to protect his heart. In their relationship, they both learned what it meant to truly support one another. William, who had always relied on his power and influence to control his world, discovered the power of emotional vulnerability. He learned that true strength didn't come from wealth or status, but from the ability to open up and share his fears with someone he trusted. Isabella, who had spent years guarding her heart and keeping people at a distance, began to trust William in ways she never thought possible. She learned that love wasn't just about protecting herself from hurt, but about embracing the risks that came with trusting another person. Together, they faced challenges that tested their bond. William had to let go of the past, his unresolved feelings for Olivia, and the anger he had carried for so long. Isabella had to confront the scars from her childhood, acknowledging the pain of her father's betrayal and the societal rejection that had followed. But through it all, they stood by each other, providing strength and support when the other faltered. Their partnership in business mirrored their relationship in love. They learned to work together, each bringing their unique strengths to the table. William's financial expertise and Isabella's sharp mind made them a formidable team, and together they began to build a business empire that reflected their shared vision. But beyond the professional success, it was the deepening of their personal connection that made them feel truly unstoppable. They were no longer just business partners. They were partners in every sense of the word. As their relationship grew, so did their sense of purpose. Isabella and William began to realize that their connection was not just about love, but about understanding and respecting each other's journeys. They saw in each other the potential for greatness individually and together, and they began to work toward a future that was built on trust, respect, and love. Their relationship became a source of strength for both of them. Where they had once felt lost, together they felt complete. They had found in each other a partnership that was based on equality, not control. William, who had once seen women as trophies or tools for power, now saw Isabella as an equal, someone he could rely on not just for emotional support, but as a true partner in every aspect of life. Isabella, who had long been afraid of being hurt again, finally allowed herself to be loved in a way that was genuine and unconditional. Together, they began to build the life they had always dreamed of. They learned to appreciate the small moments, the quiet mornings they spent together, the laughter they shared, and the sense of peace that came with knowing they were no longer alone in the world. They had learned that love was not just about grand gestures, but about the everyday acts of kindness, support, and understanding that formed the foundation of a true partnership. Their relationship wasn't just about passion or attraction, it was about mutual respect, shared values, and the deep emotional bond they had built. As they continued to grow together, Isabella and William realized that they had found something rare and precious, a love that was built on trust, resilience, and the willingness to face the future together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. In the end, their relationship became a symbol of transformation and healing. They had both come from places of pain and darkness, but together they had created something beautiful. Their love was a testament to the power of forgiveness, the strength of vulnerability, and the beauty of two people choosing to support and uplift each other every day. Family life. Isabella and William's journey together led them to the creation of a life they both had once dreamed of but never truly believed they could achieve. The foundation of their relationship, built on mutual respect, love, and healing from their respective pasts, gradually flourished into a nurturing family life filled with love and joy. What had started as a connection tainted by the weight of revenge and trauma blossomed into a deep and unshakable partnership that neither of them had expected but both had longed for. Isabella, once trapped in the remnants of a broken family and a damaged self-image, found herself in a completely new chapter of her life. William, too, had healed from the wounds of his past, his relationship with Olivia serving as a painful reminder of his own vulnerabilities. Together, they turned these experiences into strength, and soon their home became a place of comfort, laughter, and understanding. They were no longer just two people trying to recover from their separate pain. They were building something beautiful together. The love that had been the root of their relationship grew stronger as they shared their lives. The quiet moments, the shared conversations, and the simple joys of day-to-day living formed the bedrock of their family. The love that Isabella and William shared did not stop at the borders of their personal connection. It expanded to include the children they began to raise together. They both understood the importance of providing a stable, loving environment for their children, one that would shield them from the pain of their own pasts. Isabella, having faced the sting of neglect and rejection as a child, was determined to give her children the love and security that she had always craved. William, having grown up in a world that often valued power over affection, wanted to offer his children a safe and loving home, where family was not just about status, but about care, emotional support, and unconditional love. Together, they created a home filled with laughter, open conversations, and shared moments that shaped the foundation of their children's lives. They made sure to teach their children the values they themselves had learned, the importance of resilience, love, and the strength to embrace one's true self. Isabella was adamant about showing her children the importance of independence, while William emphasized the value of emotional intelligence, the ability to empathize, and the power of true love. As a family, they bonded over shared experiences and a commitment to supporting each other through thick and thin. Their family was a symbol of change, a living testament to what could be accomplished when individuals choose to move forward from their painful pasts. The dynamic they had built was not only a personal success, but also a model of hope for those who had faced adversity. They proved that love could heal wounds and transform lives. Together, Isabella and William showed their children that life's challenges didn't define them. How they chose to face those challenges and grow from them did. Their home became a sanctuary not only for their children, but for themselves. It was a place where, no matter what the outside world threw at them, they could always return to each other for comfort and understanding. Isabella and William worked hard to ensure that their relationship was built on care and compassion, not only for each other, but for their family as a whole. They supported each other's dreams, ambitions, and personal growth while always keeping their family as the center of their world. This unwavering support for one another created a family dynamic that was filled with warmth, security, and mutual respect. In their home, love was the unspoken rule that governed everything. Their children felt safe in the knowledge that they were loved unconditionally by both parents, and Isabella and William found peace in each other's arms. Their relationship became more than just about them. It was about creating a legacy of love, understanding, and growth for the next generation. They were both determined to break the cycles of dysfunction and pain that had marred their lives and replace them with a family that valued communication, emotional well-being, and unshakable support. As they moved forward in their journey as a family, they learned that love wasn't just about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about showing up for each other day in and day out through all of life's ups and downs. Isabella and William's relationship and family life became a beacon of hope, a reminder that no matter how broken or imperfect we may feel, we always have the power to change and create the life we desire. Together, they found a love that not only healed the wounds of the past, but created a foundation for a future filled with happiness, peace, and fulfillment. The family they created was a testament to their resilience, love, and growth. Isabella and William had learned to love not only each other, but themselves and their children with the kind of devotion and care that could weather any storm. Their family was a true reflection of what could happen when two people truly dedicated themselves to one another, to healing, and to building something better than they had ever known before. And as they continued on their journey, they knew that no matter what came their way, they had created something that would last a lifetime, a family bound by love, support, and the knowledge that they were stronger together than they had ever been apart. True freedom and complete happiness. Isabella had always believed that freedom was something unattainable, something that only those who had never experienced loss could afford. But as the years passed, and with William by her side, she came to realize that true freedom comes not from escaping one's circumstances, but from releasing the chains of the past that bind us. It was not about physical distance or geographical boundaries. It was about releasing the emotional burden she had carried for so long. For Isabella, this freedom came when she finally stopped fearing her past and, more importantly, stopped fearing the judgment of others. She had spent so many years agonizing over what people thought of her. The judgment, the whispers behind her back, the pitying glances, those were all things she had felt deeply, especially in the aftermath of her family's collapse. The shame she carried was a weight she couldn't shake, and for a long time, she thought she had to keep up appearances to show the world that she was still worthy of respect, even if her entire world had crumbled. But being with William had changed her. He never judged her for her past, never questioned her strength, and never made her feel like she had to be anything other than who she truly was. With him, Isabella found a sense of peace that allowed her to release the fears and insecurities she had been carrying for so long. Living with William meant living in the present, a concept that had been foreign to Isabella for most of her life. She had always been haunted by her past, afraid that the mistakes of her family, the people who had abandoned her, and the failure she had endured would always define her. But with William's love and support, she was able to shed that burden. No longer did she have to define herself by what she had lost. No longer did she need to seek validation from others. The love she had with William allowed her to embrace who she was without apology. Together, Isabella and William created a life that was rooted in the present. They stopped looking back, stopped wondering if they could have done things differently, and instead focused on what they could build together. Their relationship was one where both partners were equal, where both had a voice, and where both were empowered to create the life they wanted. This sense of partnership allowed them to heal together, to find happiness not in what they had lost, but in what they had gained: love, trust, and a future filled with endless possibilities. The freedom they experienced was not just about being free from the chains of the past. It was about being free from the expectations of others. They didn't have to answer to anyone but themselves. Isabella was no longer the woman. She had been a woman who tried to live up to impossible standards and who allowed the opinions of others to dictate her actions. She had become a woman who embraced her flaws, who found strength in her vulnerability, and who allowed herself to simply be. In their new life together, Isabella and William created a space where they could live authentically. They were free to love each other fully, without fear, without regret, and without the burden of past mistakes hanging over them. It was a love that transcended the superficial and became something deeper, something more real. They were no longer two people trying to find their way in a world that had let them down. They were two people who had found each other and had built a life of their own. Their life together wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. They didn't need to conform to societal expectations or chase after things that weren't important to them. They learned that true happiness came from within, from being content with the life they had created together. They didn't need the approval of others to feel fulfilled. They only needed each other. And in that, they found the truest form of happiness. Isabella had finally learned to let go of the past. She no longer allowed the scars of her past to define her. She had healed in ways she never thought possible. And with William, she was able to look forward to a future that was filled with promise. Together, they found peace in their shared life, and their love grew stronger with each passing day. As they built their life together, Isabella came to understand that happiness was not a destination, it was a journey. It wasn't something you reached and then maintained. It was something you created, day by day, moment by moment. With William by her side, Isabella knew she had everything she needed. Together, they had created a life that was rich in love, understanding, and mutual respect, a life that was full of joy and laughter. In their shared future, Isabella and William learned that happiness wasn't about achieving perfection, but about embracing imperfection with love and acceptance. They had created something beautiful out of the broken pieces of their pasts. And in doing so, they had created a future that was brighter than either of them had ever imagined. Their happiness wasn't just about the material things they had, it was about the love they had found in each other, the family they were building, and the lives they were living authentically. They had found freedom from the chains of the past and had built something truly lasting. And in the end, that was all that mattered. They had found true freedom, true happiness, and the love they had always deserved. True happiness. The relationship between Isabella and William was more than just a romantic partnership. It was a testament to the power of true love and transformation. Together, they had faced obstacles that tested their resilience. But through it all, they had discovered an unbreakable bond. Their love, once born out of a shared desire for revenge, had evolved into something deep, something real. It was no longer about the past or the pain they had both suffered. It was about the present, the connection they shared, and the future they were now building. For Isabella, the journey to this point had been long and difficult. She had spent so many years haunted by the loss of her family's fortune and the shame that had followed. She had felt abandoned, misunderstood, and alone in the world. But in William, she found something she had never expected: someone who truly saw her. He had supported her through her darkest moments, never once judging her for the mistakes of the past. And in turn, Isabella had shown William a love that was more than just a transaction. She had shown him a love that was pure and unwavering, something that had the power to heal old wounds. Together, they had become a force that couldn't be stopped. They had faced down the ghosts of their pasts, confronting them with courage and strength. And in doing so, they had found freedom. The weight of the past no longer burdened them. They had let go of the chains that once held them captive. In its place, they had built something new, something powerful. Their relationship became a symbol of second chances, of redemption, and of the kind of love that defies all odds. Isabella and William's relationship wasn't without its challenges. They still faced moments of doubt and insecurity, but they faced them together. They didn't shy away from their problems. Instead, they confronted them head-on. Whether it was dealing with lingering feelings of anger or navigating the complexities of their past, they knew that together, they could overcome anything. The obstacles they had faced in the past had only made them stronger. They had learned to lean on each other, to trust in one another's strengths, and to support each other when times got tough. Through this, they had become a team, not just in love, but in life. And this teamwork was what carried them through the toughest times, whether it was dealing with Olivia's manipulation or simply navigating the complexities of daily life. As their relationship grew, so did their bond. What started as a partnership born out of necessity had blossomed into something deep and meaningful. They had learned to love each other not just for who they were, but for the people they were becoming. They had grown together. And through their shared experiences, They had found a new kind of strength, a strength that was rooted in love and mutual respect. Their life together had become a celebration of everything they had accomplished and everything they still hoped to achieve. They were no longer defined by their past mistakes or by the expectations of others. They had created their own path, and they walked it together, hand in hand. There was no looking back anymore, only forward, toward a future filled with promise and possibility. In their newfound happiness, Isabella and William had become the people they had always been meant to be. They were no longer held back by the pain of their pasts. They had broken free from the chains that had once defined them, and in doing so, they had built a life that was full of joy, peace, and fulfillment. Their love had transformed them both, allowing them to find happiness in ways they never thought possible. As they moved forward in their lives, Isabella and William had learned that true happiness didn't come from external circumstances, it came from within. It came from the love they shared and the life they had built together. They had learned to value the present, to cherish the moments they shared, and to look forward to the future with hope and excitement. They had created a life where love, respect, and understanding were at the core of everything they did. And in doing so, they had found something more valuable than anything money could buy: true happiness. Their journey was far from over, but they knew that whatever came their way, they would face it together. They had found a love that was strong enough to weather any storm, and with that love, they could conquer anything that lay ahead. Together, Isabella and William had found their happily ever after, a love that had healed their pasts, a love that had given them the freedom to live fully in the present, and a love that would continue to guide them into the future. They had created a life that was filled with joy, laughter, and unwavering support. And in the end, that was all that mattered. They had found the happiness they deserved, and they would continue to build their future side by side for the rest of their lives. Thank you so much for watching today's story. I hope you enjoyed the twist and the unexpected turns in this incredible tale. If you want to see more amazing content like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Stories TH. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.